Time doesn't erase murder. It just hides it better. They said the case was closed. They said no one was watching. But someone always is. This is Santana True Crime.
Welcome back to Santana True Crime. Tonight is our weekly update where we break down current cases that are still developing, still moving through the courts, or still unfolding in real time. We're also marking an important date. This week is the anniversary of the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, an event that shocked the corporate world, law enforcement community, and the public. The man accused, Luigi Mangioni, is currently in court fighting over what evidence the jury will be allowed to hear and what could be thrown out of the case entirely. We'll get into that tonight. Joining me is Dr. Brian Santana, and we're going to walk through three major cases. We're going to start off with the case of Travis Lee Turner, then work our way to Luigi Mangioni, and then finally, we're going to be discussing the Slender Man stabbing suspect, Morgan Geyser. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here. Lots of stuff going on this week.
Yeah, it really is a packed week, and that's why we chose to do this weekly update instead of just choosing a case or two like we normally do. You actually brought my attention to this case of Travis Lee Turner, and I wanted to talk about that to start the night off. We know that Travis Lee Turner was a football coach of a high school team in Virginia. The team was very successful. I believe they're undefeated, and they're about to play in the state playoffs, correct?
Yeah, they're I think they're in the state semifinals right now. They're like a game or two away from the state championship. Still going strong even after the coaches disappeared.
Yes, and not only has he disappeared, but now he's disappeared on the roll call of the school there because they've removed him as an employee.
Yeah.
What we know is that he's been charged with 10 felony counts linked to child sexual exploitation. And I believe that these are due to solicitation for 5 of the charges, and then having child pornography on his computer, right?
Yeah, so that's my understanding. So initially this started off, this is around November 20th. His wife reported him as a missing person. That was supposedly, this was independent before any charges or any warrants or search warrants, any arrest warrants or search warrants were filed. But his wife, Leslie, reported him missing. And 5 days later, authorities were en route to question him in relation to the child pornography and the soliciting of a child charges that were ultimately filed in the arrest warrant. But before they had an opportunity to talk to him, he went missing on the 20th. And 5 days later, we get all of these different arrest warrants and a slew of search warrants that have been executed by the local police, the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and other people. Lots of people involved now.
Yeah, I believe that the Virginia State Police is who initially had the investigation, which makes sense because I can't confirm this, but most agencies of that at the state level, I know, will have an FBI task force officer, a U.S. Marshals task force officer, and DEA and ATF. So kind of your major branches. And we discussed this off the air, but their responsibility is to essentially, they are duly sworn. So they would be sworn by the Virginia State Police and also be sworn by the marshals, and they would have credentials from both. And the idea is that they would work on federal cases within that jurisdiction because, believe it or not, there's actually not a lot of ATF and U.S. Marshals that work a lot of areas. They're responsible for very large areas. So that's the way they expand their power, is by using these task force agents who then would work collectively with other agencies from the surrounding area. So you may have a sheriff's department that has a task force officer as well, who's working with a state police task force and an actual U.S. Marshal, all on these cases. And the anything to do with, with children in this nature
Mhm.
is very common to go federal too. So that part is not shocking. I'm sure it was a shock to the community that this happened. And here's a picture of the wanted poster there. He's got a $5,000 reward, which honestly, it seems small for what he did.
Yeah.
But from what, and I don't know what you saw about this, but from what
Mhm.
I saw, one of the ways that he relaxed was to go into the woods with his gun and kind of,
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's got a lot of woods that are behind his house.
Yeah, it's a very, very rural area in Appalachia, and he's lived in that area and would go exploring to relax, like you said, in those woods for over 20 years. So he knows the woods around there very well. And I think, if anything, that's one of the aspects of this case that makes it probably a little bit more challenging to immediately locate him, because he does go off into the woods before any arrest warrants or search warrants have started. So they've had no contact with him before he goes missing, and he left his car, he left his keys, his phone, his glasses, his contact lenses, all of his cash, and all of his prescription medications that he took as well. And so it's it, there might not be anything technology wise where they would be able to easily trace him. And my understanding is that there are a lot of resources being poured into this search, but the area is described as incredibly dense, and just the topography of the land very challenging, is the way that someone put it. And so I would imagine, if someone has spent 20 years kind of exploring around and hunting and doing other things in those areas, and you give them a few days head start, they could potentially get really far out there.
Yeah, and that's something that I learned when we were talking about Brandon Swanson in one of the other episodes, is that people usually go further than you think they're capable of going. And what I thought about this too is that his dad is in the football
Mhm,
Hall of Fame for
mhm.
the state. So I guess
Yeah.
it's like the, high school football Hall of Fame or whatever for the state. And the reason why I bring that up is that if he's from I'm I'm gonna say prominent, but a family that is popular in that area and well
Mhm,
liked, and a local agency finds out about these warrants or the charges,
mhm,
I don't think you can rule out that someone may have, told them that, hey, you've got arrest warrants
mhm.
coming down. You need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And what I was two things for that is I think that would make sense of why he's leaving his cell phone,
Mhm,
because he knows that he can be tracked with that.
mhm,
But the other question I have is, do we know he actually went into the woods to begin with? Or was, because if he knew about these warrants and he knew he was getting arrested and he's well liked in that area, I don't
mhm.
think you can rule out that he left in a car and they're going to be spending weeks upon weeks searching through the woods trying to track him down when in fact he's not even in the area.
Well, and I think a lot of this comes back from testimony from his wife. I mean, his wife went there and said that he grabbed a gun and went into the woods. I think
Right.
that's where a lot of this started. By all accounts, I mean, of course, the family is going to be looked at very closely in these kinds of circumstances. By all accounts, at least publicly, what said, they, law enforcement has said she's been incredibly cooperative. They has opened up their land and houses to searches whenever they've wanted, and freely. And so they've consistently publicly described her as someone who's been very cooperative. So, and that she was not suspected. They've said that directly in this, but it does make you wonder, was there any kind of help? I mean, this is assuming he's still alive. It sounds very ominous when you say someone went into the woods with a gun, with just a gun, and left their prescription medicines they relied on and other things. And we haven't heard from them since, right before child pornography and solicitation of a minor charges are about to come down. And so you have to wonder if he's still alive. And if he is still alive, um, how long he could be out there in the woods without any kind of help from someone else. I mean, we're going on, this is November 20th is when he disappears. So we're about, what, 2 weeks in?
Yeah, and I don't want to accuse her of lying or being untruthful. I'm just saying that
Mhm,
if we're looking at all the possibilities,
mhm,
with that big of a gap between the charges and him walking away, I
mhm,
think that, you're absolutely right as far as him taking his own life, that that would be a very high possibility, and one that I would think would happen and would make complete sense of why you're not taking your medicine with you or other things that, you would need. I would
mhm,
hope that he would take a cell phone with him when he's normally walking in the woods. But that's going to create another huge problem, because if you've got someone that is intentionally hiding from you,
mhm,
that grew up in that area for, his entire life, like you mentioned before, and he goes and shoots himself, finding that body in a densely populated area, uh, you know, and especially around this time of year with snow and
yeah.
with you've got to worry about predation with animals, that's it's going to be a monumental task.
Several big rainstorms just over the past few days as well. I don't know how much that the rainstorms, I know you've talked to people that have done these searches before, how much a big rainstorm would impact the dogs they've had out there picking up scents and so forth. But at a minimum, all of those rainstorms and very dense underbrush and stuff is going to make it hard to navigate, even worse.
Yeah, and I think that you're absolutely right. It becomes a problem for the dogs, not in the sense of they wouldn't be able to track, but
Mhm.
when you're
Right.
going long distances like that, like if he walked out for 5 days,
Yeah.
that's I've been on tracks that were 4 hours in
Hmm.
like a swamp,
Hmm.
and we had to stop, and luckily we popped out into a neighborhood, and one of the first things we had to do was get the dog clean water, and
Hmm.
you know we end up going to this like lady's spigot and just turned it on, and those kind of logistical things you don't really think of with something like that. But this would not be one dog being
Right.
put on this case. I mean, this would be a big effort, as well as you've got to keep in mind that this is a person with a rifle
Hmm.
that is in the woods, and you're going. If he's hiding, he knows the area. That presents a
Hmm.
huge danger for those officers.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically the plot of Rambo: First Blood, right?
Exactly.
So it's someone that goes into the woods and knows the area and the people, and is has the advantage of kind of surprise and that familiarity and stuff.
Yeah, and one of the troubling things about this too is if he does take his own life and they can't find his bodies or the body, that means that his victims that have come forward,
Mhm.
um, they're going to be on a standstill for a while, and there's going to be always that possibility of, well, what about if he didn't take his own life? What about if he really didn't go into the woods and
Yeah.
he's still out lurking around? Is my child safe? So hopefully they will find him again. It's a $5,000 reward. If you've got information on Travis Lee Hunter, you can contact the U.S. Marshal's office. And I wish I had a phone number for you, but I don't. Um, do you have anything else on that case, Brian?
Just that at this moment, law enforcement is holding the details of the arrest warrants very tight. I did call Wise County to try to get a copy of the arrest warrants because I noticed that all the news agencies were referencing all of the different charges. And so I thought, and there were arrest warrants issued. So I called down there, and the clerk basically said that the warrants would be released to the public as soon as he was apprehended. But until that point, they were she didn't use the word sealing; they were withholding the warrants from public release until he was apprehended. Then they would be made public. So
Yeah, and that'll be good to look into because then we'll actually be able to see more of the detail of what he actually did. If this was um, if he went onto an app, or did he,
mhm.
were these students that he knew from school, or kind of what it is.
I'll tell you the thing that bothers me most about this case is that 1 year ago, almost exactly, there was another high school teacher at this same high school who was similarly arrested by police and convicted of soliciting minors and child pornography as well. And I realize that there's we don't there's I'm not suggesting there's any connection between these two, but I think about some of the poor students there, and you have to think about, like, man, it seems like every year another teacher is popping up like with like child pornography. This is like a small town, and it's like, and these people that in a close community, the community's really rallied around the football team. But you think about, like, what are the odds that like 2 years in a row you have someone that's like has this child pornography, is soliciting minors. Maybe this is more common than I'm getting. I was just shocked when I heard that there was just these two guys back to back, and I thought, is there any chance that these two guys like had that they knew about each other, that they were just each kind of operating, doing their things independently of one another, but they happen to be at this small school.
Yeah, that is a strange coincidence. I mean, when I hear about things like this, I always think of that predators like
Mhm,
Travis will find places of employment or volunteer in places like this because they've got access to children and
mhm,
they're able to fly under the radar. The same thing of why the Boy Scouts got in trouble
mhm,
for not vetting people that were, doing the exact thing. They were using scouts as a way to prey on children. And the scouts did, or the scouting organization
mhm.
did not do their due diligence in doing background checks or doing any type of investigation when a complaint did come in, and they were penalized for it. And that's why today they've got policies in action to try to prevent
Mhm.
that, even though, that's not something that you can totally prevent,
Right,
especially with someone like this, because he's going to pass a background check.
right.
He's not had anything in his past before. And
Just a speeding
so,
ticket. Yeah,
yeah, just a speeding ticket. So
yeah.
it's not a perfect system. And I do think that that's why hopefully schools are going to more measures of like, not being alone with a kid in a classroom
Right.
or not being in the bathroom, while the kids are changing, that sort of thing.
And I kept
I mean,
thinking about just the kid there. That has to make you paranoid about these people that you trust and you feel like, like having two arrests in 2 years like that. Like, it would make you maybe look twice or think twice about the other people you're around.
yeah, and with such a small town, who knows what was going on, and
Mhm,
if anyone else in that school or a part of the football organization knew anything
mhm,
about this, or is this something where gaining access to children because of
mhm,
social media and apps,
mhm.
it's just so easy to do, right? Like we saw that even in Delphi, where the guy was like catfishing the victims in that case, claiming to be this bodybuilding model guy when he
Yeah.
was like a fat piece of shit eating Doritos on his couch,
Mhm,
who had a real mental health problem in liking children.
Mhm.
But yeah, I can't explain that of why there if there is a connection. Hopefully there's not, and they've just got two crappy teachers, and there's not
Right.
an organization within that town that's allowing this to happen.
And I wasn't suggesting, just to be clear, that there was any connection between the 2. I just thought it was odd that you have these 2 guys at the high school, that's all. And I also just, would, um would think that at this moment, as there is a lot of support for the kids on the football team, which is a good thing, they are doing really well and continuing to play. While I can imagine the level of distraction, and kind of like beyond just being a distraction, though, just the kind of emotional turmoil that they must feel, kind of thinking back on their interactions with this coach, and certainly probably being questioned by police, I would assume as well, right? Since they have a lot of contact with the coach. But I kept thinking about, while it's a good thing that a lot of people in the community and also other rival schools even were coming out and really supporting this team. You mentioned they deleted his profile from their website. I think it's equally important that, you know, good focusing on the support for these kids who need it. But this should be a really scary wake up call for people in this district. And no matter what their big takeaways from this, they should be very frightened about the fact that this has happened 2 years in a row. And beyond just celebrating, supporting the kids who are there, really look forward and think about, like, what can we do a little differently or better?
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right with that, and, it's gotta be embarrassing for these kids too,
Mhm.
that's your coach, that's the face
Right.
of your team,
Right.
is a
Yeah.
guy that
Yeah.
is, getting hunted down by the US Marshals,
Right.
or,
Right.
I mean, especially a high school kid,
Mhm.
because 'cause I'm sure that's the type of person that you're gonna look up to. If you're
Right.
on a football team, you're gonna look at your coach as your leader, the guy that you wanna mimic, and then you find out that he's a liar and that, you know, he's been living a charade of a life, and deep down, he's a pedophile that, is despised by everyone in society.
I mean, the only thing that would have probably been more embarrassing would have been if he had, walked into one of those sets that Chris Hansen set up with, To Catch a
Oh,
Predator,
yeah.
and it was broadcast in that way. Chris Hansen, if you happen to be there, listening in or see this, yeah, that would have been worse. I can imagine that would have been maybe more humiliating than going off into the, but it does sound just ominous. Like, I hope this, I don't know what turning out well looks like in this. I think turning out well in this case is that no one else is harmed by this guy. I think there's some closure for the victims in this in some ways, but no matter what happens, it's likely not turning out well for Travis Turner, though. I think we can say that.
Right, and honestly, I don't know of what would be well, I've got my opinion, but between ending your own life and being in a prison as they call them chomos,
Hmm.
a pedophile,
Hmm.
that's like the lowest of the low, and it's open season on you, you know?
Yeah, and I'm
Those
wondering if
guys
this is
are
what.
brutalized.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's the calculation he made.
Right.
The timing just seems strange, and I think that the um, law enforcement has held this case very tight to the vest with the arrest warrant details and things like that. But it just seems like it's not quite a coincidence that he happened to completely disappear 5 days before these warrants were executed.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I think that he had some type of plan, whether it was to find a quiet spot in the woods and take his own life, or it was, you know what, I'm going to hike through these woods, and I know this back
Mhm.
trail to this location
Yeah,
where I
yeah.
can stay out for a long time,
Because
you
this
know?
is not new. Yeah, this is not New York City. This is not like, I know we'll talk about Luigi's case a little later, but this is not. We have over 60,000 cameras in like a few mile area. This where every single thing is. It takes a lot of man hours, but we can basically track your movements throughout the entire city. You can't do
Right.
this in rural Appalachia. So
Right, and he does not have a electronic device with him too.
right,
So,
yeah.
you know, I think that is actually a good transition to Luigi if you want to go off with them. So last year,
Mhm.
the CEO was murdered by Luigi, and I remember when this happened. Do you remember seeing
Mhm.
the surveillance footage?
Yeah, it was
It
eerie.
was
That
so
was all that was on
eerie
TV for
almost.
like. Yeah, it looked like everybody was initially commenting that it looked like a professional hit.
Right.
Um, when in fact it might have just been someone who played Grand Theft Auto a lot. It was a or Call of Duty. But it did look like um the initial commentaries. I just remember hearing a lot of talking heads on the news describing the way he seemed very calm, the way his arms and body were positioned when he fired. That was someone who had been trained to do that. And at least very early on, there was speculation about whether it was a professional hit. And so uh, it was incredibly just very rarely do we have so much footage like that right away, just kind of released and just broadcast everywhere, kind of nonstop. And that the manhunt that ensued was quite dramatic.
Yeah, and it looks like, looking back at it, that he did spend a lot of time planning this. Like, that's
Mhm.
we can clearly see that,
Mhm.
um, especially because he had the fake ID. He had a suppressor on the pistol,
Mhm.
so then it don't make a lot of noise when you press the trigger instead of going bang. He took a bus um, to travel with, so that kind of complicates things too, especially with a fake ID.
And a
And
bus ticket, something that came out into court today, the bus ticket that was in the name of a Sam Dawson, which
right,
is different than the name that was on his fake ID, and, of course, different from his real name as well, so.
yeah, and so I feel like it's someone that planned up into a point,
Mhm.
but didn't put a lot of planning in the contingency of like, what am I going to do when a surveillance picture is, put up on my face?
Yeah,
Am I going to get out of the country, or am I going to go to McDonald's and get a McGriddle?
right.
You know,
Well,
and he ended up going to McDonald's to get his, pancakes or McGriddle or whatever it was but that's just a bad idea.
it
Like,
was a bad idea, and I think he underestimated how many cameras there are in New York City. He
right.
was wearing a mask, but he has the only unfortunately, I think for him, and fortunate for everyone else, was that the features that you can see, which are very few, his eyebrows and other things, are very distinct. He has a very distinct look, even wearing a mask. And so I think if he had actually been someone who looks fairly anonymous, I think this would have been a much, yeah, look at his
Yeah.
eyebrows. Yeah.
Yeah, those eyebrows are, pretty thick.
Yeah, and on at least 2 different occasions, he did pull his mask down when he was communicating with people, I mean, before the murder, and I think he just underestimated that, like, everything in New York is like there's cameras everywhere, literally. You can't go inside any place, you can't walk around the streets without some camera somewhere kind of catching you. Now, it doesn't mean the authorities are always going to be going through all of those, but in a high profile case like this, where they want to scour the entire city, like there's a lot of footage to be found.
And I'm sure in a case like this, they actually did go through all
They
that
did.
footage.
Yep. There was an
I
entire group
remember
that just went through
it
it.
reminds me of the, Boston bombing case when,
Hmm.
once they found the suspect, it was like, "Okay, now we're gonna backtrack and pull every single camera
Hmm.
along the way," and, it's with big cities like that, you're able to do that, and you should be able to track them to the point where they get into a car or go into a house, or sometimes even remove their mask. why I wanted to bring up this case, so is what is happening in court and what the fight is going to be over as far as the evidence in this case. Um, I know that the defense is they're going to be claiming a couple things. They're saying that the police officers were not authorized to or didn't have probable cause or reason to search his bag, which when they did search his bag is when they found the fake ID, the bus ticket, the 9mm handgun, as well as a manifesto / notebook expressing anger towards insurance companies.
Well, they're also objecting to the use of the word manifesto, which they said is a prejudicial kind of police invented term that versus I don't know what else you would describe it. Maybe like a diary or his like
Collection of
a
writings.
diary doesn't sound too good either. That sounds kind of
Right.
his collection of writings, right? His edited collection of musings on the healthcare system in America, like
Yeah.
something.
And whether you call it, an essay
Yeah,
or,
So-
a
right.
journal or
A
whatever,
report.
it's going to get read in court,
Right.
you know.
And it doesn't look. It's not a good look to have that on you when you're when you're detained. And this is actually something I wanted to bring up with you. I know we'll get to the stuff that happened today, but I'm a little confused. Like I know he's pled not guilty to the state charges that they're hearing right now, or they're debating about what's going to be in as far as evidence. But his intent is to plead not guilty, or he did plead not guilty, and um, I'm confused because someone who goes to the extent planning, like you described, I mean, he made some big mistakes in this, but he was obviously planning, right?
Right.
Like this is very premeditated. There's a lot of effort put into this, and you're writing like manifestos and all these things. There was a report that I believe it was the New York Post printed the other day that described the way that he keeps an Excel sheet. He's received over 6,000 letters. He's had over $1.4 million donated in the last months to his legal defense. And the average donation was $15. And he logs the name of the person and where they were from in his Excel sheet for every single letter he receives and tries to respond to as many of these as he can and is trying to track where his supporters are and things like that. It just sounds guilty as hell to me. Like I don't understand like how on one hand you want to, like, if you're writing these manifestos or essays or whatever you want to describe it, critiquing the healthcare system in which there are big issues with. No one's debating that, I think. But like, why not just take responsibility and say, hell yeah, I did this. Here's what I did, and here's why I did it. And actually, I want to tell you about all the things that problems I have with the system, and here's why I did it. Pleading not guilty. I'm assuming that with the not guilty, he's going to be making like it's not me, right? Or does his tune change after this evidence is ruled in? So, because if the evidence is out, this is a different case. Now, I think there's zero chance that this evidence is not going to be allowed in. But let's just take a hypothetical for one moment. All of this evidence is out. This in his bag. Is he kind of holding out? Do you think on the slim hope that there's a kind of there's an opportunity there? But after, if this evidence is in, does he change the way he's positioning himself or what? I don't get it. I don't get what this is.
I don't think that for the defense, there's no value in him pleading guilty.
Uh-huh.
Unless they give him some type of offer to plead guilty, which they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's a slam dunk case. It's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
They've got video footage. They've got the gun. They've got the essay, manifesto, whatever you want to call it, writings in his backpack. They've got the bus ticket. They've got everything they need to prosecute the case successfully. And for the defense, it's what do I have to lose? And the other aspect for him is that, this is all attention-seeking behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like this idea that he thought that by killing a CEO of a healthcare company, it's going to create this world change and I'm going to be looked at as a hero. When in fact, what's going to happen is as soon as this trial is over, it's going to be the next one.
Yeah.
And he's just going to fade. He's going to be another inmate trying to survive. And, which I don't think is going to work out well. He thinks that he's going to be respected in prison. I don't think so. I think that he's going to be extorted because of all the money that he's, bringing in, things like that, of news articles saying that are getting $1.4 million. We're not the only ones that are seeing that.
Right.
People in prison are seeing that. And so I think that, he's not going to be looked at as this heroic Robin Hood that, took one for society by murdering a CEO.
Right.
And, like I said, his trial is done. He fades away. We've got the Long Island serial killer case coming up in 26. I'm sure that there will be other cases that get a lot of footage as well, and he'll fade away. So yeah, nothing lose for him.
And it seems like at least part of the defense's contention right now is, so in court today and yesterday, the body cam footage from the officers who detained and then arrested him was played for everyone. This was Officer Tyler Fry, who had only been with the Altoona, Pennsylvania Police Force for 6 months. We were talking about before we went live tonight that he was actually, according to local coverage, he was actually learning how to perform traffic stops under the tutelage of Patrolman Joseph Detweiler when this call came in about this guy who looked like, the person that authorities were looking for in the Brian Thompson murder. And they initially didn't put much stock into it and just plan to get to it whenever, because it just didn't seem like it made a lot of sense. But they eventually did. I think it was like 20 minutes later, they did kind of stop by there to check in on this. And then they both had reported right away. They thought that they recognized him, right? And that's what they reported in court. But what a kind of welcome to the police force, just your first 6 months. And now Tyler Fry was on the stand today describing the search and the kind of events leading up to Mangioni's arrest. And what a big high profile case to be thrust into from Altoona, Pennsylvania, and international coverage, national coverage, and probably going to be, if not the most famous arrest of his career, one of them.
Yeah, I would go with the most famous arrest for him, probably. But yeah, that's so cool that happened. And I was a training officer for 13 out of the 16 years I was with the Raleigh Police Department. And I can say that, some people's first days do get wild and crazy. I've actually got a friend that owns our network that wrote a book about his first day, Pig Latin. You can get that on Amazon, Barnes Noble, anywhere you can buy a book. But that book's by Eric Tansey, who was a rookie when I was training him. And on his very first day, he ended up, which he writes about in the book, arresting 2 people that are naked. And these are separate incidents. He had one call where a guy was completely naked, had broken into a girl's car, was wearing women's panties, and there was rose petals all over the place. And the funny thing is, those were not her panties or rose petals. So he had brought those into the car with him. And then he got into a fight with a girl that was like 5'2", 400 pounds, ended up taking off her sundress and trying to poop on the American flag. And he had to go try to arrest her. So I say that because there are those times where, it's welcome to the police department.
And
but for him, what a experience to not only be one of the arresting officers, but I'm sure that they are just really, or hopefully they are coaching him and prepping him for this major case. And so this is not, most police officers, your first time going on trial, you're nervous.
Yeah.
You may have some experience like doing a mock scenario in an academy, but it's nothing like that. And I can't imagine going into court with all the cameras, and that's the very first time you get up on a stand is that. So good luck to the guy.
Yeah, and one of the things that apparently defense attorneys are going to press on is that I guess while his lead officer, his training officer, was calling in trying to deal with the fake ID, he was making conversation with Mangioni. At least part of the defense contention is that if you watch the body cam footage, Mangioni tells him on more than one occasion, "I'm not interested in talking to you," and he keeps not pushing, that's not fair. He keeps asking him questions and talking to him, and at least part of their argument is that he says that he was trying to just keep him calm. They were pretty sure it looked like the guy that they were looking for. They had not searched his bag yet at that point. He was just making small talk, didn't want him to think this was any big deal. He wanted to keep him calm until they figured out what was going on. And at least part of the defense's contention is that if they recognize that he was this suspect in this right away, like they say, and the moment he says that he doesn't want to talk to them, that they should not have continued kind of with the conversation, right? I don't know if that makes much sense as a legal argument or not. I've heard other legal commentators say that they're deeply skeptical about the defense's argument. They said there's some legal basis for it, but it's not to the level that any of this evidence is likely to go away.
Yeah, I mean, a few things. Number one, there's a couple times where you're able to search. One is by consent. So if they saw him, they thought he was the suspect, or sorry, they didn't know if he was the suspect.
Mm-hmm.
If he was just, a random guy walking down the street, any police officer can come up to you, have a conversation with you, and ask you to, submit to a search. And you are allowed to say no, because, it's just voluntary consent, which is what you need. The other type would be, it's not a search, but it's called a Terry frisk, where it's based on the Terry versus Ohio Supreme Court case. And that is when you believe someone is armed and a danger to the public because a crime has been committed in that general vicinity. So with this, if he was leaving the area in New York City, he matches the description. They believe he's armed, but they're not at that probable cause level. They can conduct a frisk. So that means that you're taking your hand and you're patting the outer clothing. You're not sticking your hands in pockets, but you're patting the outer clothing. And during a Terry frisk, you're looking for a weapon only. So you're not looking for drugs or a fake ID or anything like that. You're just trying to see, is this person armed or not? And, again, you've got to have that belief that this person's dangerous. And then the last part would be is if you have probable cause to detain and search someone. And I think that the battle is going to be, was this person free to go? Was he detained? Yeah. And then was he rightfully detained? So did they have enough at that time to tell him, no, you're not allowed to leave. You've got to stand right there. And the other thing about this is that if they are detaining him because they believe that he committed a murder, then that's when they've got the absolute right to make sure that he is not armed himself. They can search him and they can search anything that he has readily access to, which would be, in this case, the book bag. So I think that as long as the officers, which I'm sure that they are, the DA is sitting down with them and making sure they can articulate all this properly, that, as long as they don't say anything stupid, there shouldn't be any problem.
Well, and that's what, I totally get what you're saying. And that's one of the things I was curious about was when the defense has an opportunity to really question the the officers in this case, and I don't know if it will come in these hearings or not, or if this, or if there's not going to be, in the same way in a probable cause hearing, a defense wouldn't have an opportunity to like cross it. They're not going to do it a cross examination. I don't know what that's going to look like in this case specifically, but I do wonder, like you said, there's going to be a lot of prep. Certainly, this officer is fairly new, just 6 months on the police force when this happened. And meanwhile, if you have an attorney you're paying millions of dollars to, very competent defense attorney, I'm sure that he would look to try to find some way to create some opening there, and you would want to make sure the person was very prepped for that.
Yeah, and some of the things that they'll be looking at is, okay, was he placed in cuffs? When was he placed in cuffs?
Mhm.
Was he questioned at a McDonald's where he's just sitting in a booth, which that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, he was still
Um,
eating. Yeah, he was still eating
right.
while they were talking. Yeah.
Yeah, so if he's sitting there eating and his movement really isn't being restricted, then, you know, do you even know what questions they were asking? Because you're allowed to ask public
They
safety questions. Like,
they
you're
asked
allowed
him.
to ask if you've
Yeah.
got a needle on you, if you've got a weapon on you. Like, all of that is not part of the violation of Miranda.
So his fake ID was a fake New Jersey driver's license, and one of the questions they asked him was what he was doing in Pennsylvania, what he was doing in the area, and he said that he was homeless, that he was basically passing through, that he was homeless, and he just wanted to use the Wi-Fi in McDonald's. That was kind of where this started. They asked him when the last time he was in New York, and at that point he got visibly nervous, according to them. But then he seemed to calm down, and they had insinuated that the reason they were there was just because there had been, the manager had called and was concerned that there was in someone that was suspicious that was in the restaurant, so they were just checking in to see what was going on. And he said at the time that he was just there like looking for the Wi-Fi, and he was eating his food while they were talking.
Yeah, and the police are allowed to lie to you.
Right.
So if the police had information, which it sounds like that they had information that this was possibly a murder suspect, they can tell him whatever. And that's actually a tactic that we would use if we're getting backup. You don't want to be like, hey, are you the murderer?
Right. They
That murdered that CEO?
And they'd asked him to pull his mask down very early on, and he did. He did comply and pull his mask down. And at that moment, they said they recognized him from the picture.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, I think that the defense is going to be grasping at every single straw they can, to include calling it an essay instead of a manifesto. But I hope that this doesn't drag out too long, but I've got a feeling this one's going to drag out a very long time.
You think so?
Yes. I think they are going to challenge every single thing that they can, and they're going to get this thing continued, and we'll be looking at late 2026. We'll be doing an update on this.
So, and this is just the preview of things to come. Fights over whether you call it a manifesto or things like that. Because what's the defense really going to be in this case? It sounds like it's like the best offense is a good defense, where they're just going to be trying to attack procedure and things like that, versus offering any kind of affirmative defense.
And there's always the option that they're trying to poke enough holes where then they can get a deal. But
Yeah,
what deal are you going to give them?
not much.
Yeah.
And he still has the federal case down the line too. I mean, this is the state case is going first, but the the Justice Department has said that they have not taken the death penalty off the table with the federal case. So it's he still has that too.
And I think that is the only real deal to be made, is if they can make a deal with the feds to not give him the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And with Trump being
Even
in office, you know that they are more than willing to use the death penalty. Let's be honest.
was it's hard to imagine a crime to be more premeditated
Right.
than this. I mean, if there is such a thing as a premeditated crime, this would seem to be a textbook example. So I can only assume that it would be one of those things that it just wouldn't be worth the actual public resources and time for something, given given the fact that there is this sector of the public that's very sympathetic to him, that the death penalty itself wouldn't be guaranteed. Right.
Well, yeah, and when we say death penalty, that ends up turning into a life sentence as well until, because the amount of appeals they'll get and all that jazz. So either way, this is going to get drug out
Mm-hmm.
because federal court's going to be in our round for them to bring stuff up and challenge things. And so, yeah, we're,
So in other words, it's okay to go get some popcorn and settle in for a very long kind of experience with this case.
right. Absolutely. We'll be talking about this one for years to come, I'm sure.
And there'll be more stuff tomorrow. They're going to be back in court tomorrow again. And so I'm sure we'll hear something about when the camera was turned on or off for the strip search and things like that. Lots of very kind of minute details that are likely not to add up to too much.
Yeah, I don't feel the need to do a weekly update on this one. And in fact, in December, we're going to have a packed month, even with doing 2 shows a month. So maybe we can get an update in January or February, but I promise you, you're not going to miss anything that's big of a deal.
The only last thing I'd mention with this though is that he in court today, he was like smiling and laughing, talking to his attorneys. He seems incredibly relaxed and unconcerned with the entire thing. We talked about the Nigel Edge case recently, and when Nigel Edge has appeared in court, he looks like he's like, borderline drugged and just like kind of out of it. He looks like he's just someone who's not very well. And Luigi does not he looks like he's having a good time and enjoying this attention, and he does not look like someone who is going to be fighting for his life in more ways than one.
Yeah, I don't think reality has set in with him very much. And I think that he wanted attention the entire time. He got it by killing a CEO of a healthcare company. And, whether it's negative or positive attention,
Mhm.
I think these are type of people that, it doesn't matter to them.
And speaking of negative or positive attention, we've had this is interesting this week with the case updates. This was the one of 2 cases that involved very high profile defendant who was taken into custody, and we have this body cam footage to pour over.
Yeah, let's actually go to that. So, we talked about the Slender Man case back in October during one of the Halloween series that we did. And for those that don't know about it, there was a 12-year-old girl that was the classmate of Morgan Geyser, and they basically had a sleepover with another 12-year-old. And then the next day, they invited her out into the woods, and Morgan stabbed her uh, 19 times, I believe. And the classmate ends up surviving. But then, of course, she said that the reason why she stabbed her is because this fictional character, the Slender Man, told her to do it. And she ended up getting sent to a mental hospital for a while. And it sounds like that. Well, it's not. It sounds like she actually then was released into a group home, but she had a GPS monitor on her and it stayed on her 24/7. Well, she ends up cutting it off and she fled the group home. And that's kind of where we're at.
Mhm.
And luckily, law enforcement was able to find her. So I'm going to play that for you right now.
You guys,
TV. You think so?
I don't know why I have to do this.
So that is Morgan with the purple hoodie.
I don't believe you're 23. That's right. Okay. We got called here.
He's
for a
provided
phone,
a
so
fake name
just
to
be
law
honest.
enforcement.
I want to make sure that you're not missing. As long as you're not missing, you go on your way. Are you missing from somewhere? Well, just give me your name and date of birth, and you can be on your way.
Okay, I'm 19.
Huh?
I'm 19.
19?
Yeah.
That's fine. You're still an adult. So
Yeah. So what's your last name? No, what?
I don't want to give you my name.
okay, well then we're gonna arrest you. We'll take you an ID. We're gonna
Not a
hold
great
you an
start.
ID at the station. So you don't want to obstruct an officer. Give me your name and date of birth. You're not wanted for murder, right?
Right.
Okay, then there shouldn't be any problem.
Okay, you're making it bigger.
What's your last name?
Reese.
How you spell it?
I-E-S.
I-E-S?
No, G-R-I-E-S.
Okay. G-R-I-E-S. What's your first name?
Stephanie.
How you spell it?
E-P-H-I-N-E.
You notice how she spells her last name wrong, and then she spells her fake first name wrong. Like, she's not doing well at this, but it gets worse.
E-P-H-I...
A-N-I-E, sorry.
A-N-I-E. Middle initial?
What's your last name?
I don't know.
I
Oh,
don't
yikes.
know when they ask your middle name would be a telltale sign that you are lying. I love how I don't know if the officer feels bad for her or something because he's like, "Oh, do you like not have one? Is that what you?" It's
But there's something about.
Do you have a middle
Hold on.
initial? Okay, what's your date of birth?
April 16th, 2002.
Okay.
Oh, Robertson. Okay.
And your last name is G-R-I-E-S? All right. 3014. I have a name and date of birth.
Both of you guys have the last opportunity.
This is your last opportunity.
all right. So obviously they run her name and they realize that that's not a fake person, or sorry, that's not a real person. And now they're trying to get her to admit who she really is.
Okay, let's try this again.
I don't know what you're
What's
so
your what's your last name?
Please just let me go.
Please just let me go. Does
Please,
not
I didn't
Can
break the
we
law.
please let her go?
Oh, did you just hear that?
Yeah, wait,
The
what,
officer mocked her and looked at the supervisor and goes, "Can we please just let her go?"
oh gosh.
So
I didn't
You
break
did by
the law.
lying to the officer.
And you guys are loitering here.
statute of obstructs identification at this moment, which is a Class A misdemeanor. That's a arrestable offense. Therefore, you can be placed under arrest for that. Both of you, because you lied and you lied. You give me your real name.
And we got dispatched here because you guys are loitering in the back of the business. It's not like we
When the
approached you
sign's
guys.
posted, there's no loitering. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So it's not a big deal. What is your name? Don't make us arrest you and do all this extra stuff that we don't need to do.
We have other stuff to worry
I
about.
know. We got way more serious things to worry about than this. But we got called here. It ain't like we just walked up and started messing with you.
And not only that, but when we print you, it could take a day,
2 days.
2 days until your prints come back before we can. So you'll be in our custody until we can release you. If you want to
And
stay
your-
all day, that's fine.
And your prints might come back before him. So then that means that he would still stay at the station and you might get released. You might as well just avoid all of that and tell us your real names.
So if you want to stay in a cell for 3 days, by all means, we'll go this route.
Yikes.
Yeah, and like this is a common occurrence when people
Yeah.
lie about about their names. You know, I just want to tell them that if you're born in the U.S.,
Yeah.
then there's got to be a record of you.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, this is about as legit as Luigi going by Sam Dawson. You give someone a bullshit
Right.
name like this, like there's like, I don't know if they imagine there's not going to run it or something, but
Right.
it just doesn't seem like a really good strategy. I mean, the strategy would have been not like deciding if you're a high profile person who's on the run, it would be to not like lay on the side of a building that's incredibly lit. Look how bright it is out there.
Right.
And just be like on camera, like, I mean, you're like attracting attention to yourself unnecessarily.
Yeah, and you would think that when 3 officers are surrounding you, you might as well just tell them the truth and bite the bullet. You're not getting out of it.
Well,
You know,
did
your
they
options
realize
are
at that
either to
moment?
What's that?
Did they realize at that moment who she was? They knew she was lying, but did they know that she was the girl from the Slender Man case? Because I kept wondering. It seems like they seem excited about, like, this is more than just a random person who's loitering, who's just being a jerk and not giving them the proper name. They seem invested in this conversation, and I kept wondering, like, do they suspect this is the person this the Slender Man girl is missing, because it's a high profile case?
Yeah, and look, as soon as she it reminds me of the United Healthcare case where this was a very popular case. And when things like this happen in law enforcement, you're getting an email, which now, guys will have them on their cell phones too. They've got multiple pictures. They've got her current picture of what she looks like. So I think that when they saw her, that they knew it was her. They just wanted to confirm that it was her. That way they're not wasting their time sitting with her, at a station for hours on end while, someone's able to positively identify her.
It's unbelievable to me that she pulled off this like escape thing. Not that she was able to escape, because it doesn't sound like there's a high level of supervision attached to her, but that she really lucked out in many ways with the sentence that she got. And I don't think she fully appreciates how fortunate, like, everything turned out for her by comparison to what it could have been, or maybe should have been. It was
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to choose this case, is that kind of what's the next steps for her, because I would hope that they send her back to a mental health facility, and the group home option is going to be off, since I've been to several group homes for people that have mental health disabilities, and they're not very restrictive at all, the ones I've seen. I mean, it's just a typical house and typical neighborhood, and they've got a lot of freedom of movement. So this was not hard to pull off, and she got 100 miles away too. So she may have had some planning, or I'm sure that the guy that she was with helped her out there. But this I don't think would require a lot of planning to escape.
And this is the video. Did you see? Was this the video that at the very end of it, she's asking the officers, like, to let her say goodbye to the person because,
Yes.
okay,
Would you like to
because
see that?
okay, because allegedly he did not know who she was, which I find so unbelievable. Like, where did she find this guy? And
Right.
like, what is this?
She didn't know my name.
Yeah. So at this point, he's got her correct name, and his radio is not working.
I have low battery.
That's what tone sound is.
What is it?
May 16, 2002, female.
His battery's about to die. That's working. Bad feeling.
Is that your real name? They didn't come back.
That's my real name.
What's your middle initial? E.
Trust me.
Is that your real birthday?
Yes, May 16th, 2002.
You got E as an Edward?
No.
Okay. Middle initial.
She said E, right?
Yeah, E.
3014. Can you try that again? Middle initial E, Edward.
So there's a national database
I love you.
that law enforcement uses, and that's what they're having dispatch do
You didn't know. I'm sorry.
is they're having dispatch run her name through that database.
Okay.
Go ahead and put your hand in.
You said I could say
I will
goodbye.
let you. You guys going to the same place. Okay.
Okay. I promise you didn't know.
Okay.
What did he just pick up?
Yes, Jake.
What?
You ate anything?
Yeah.
Is your ID in your purse? Honestly, we're gonna go through it.
It is.
Okay.
I know you will. It's not.
Okay. Well, we're gonna go through it.
Milo, female, sir? Here, just go over there.
You promised I could say goodbye.
Yeah, you guys are going to the same station. You guys are going to the same place.
All right. Fast forward now.
My fingerprints will pop up.
Yes, your fingerprints will pop up. All right. That's again from News Nation. I stole their clip. I think that hopefully what will happen with her is she'll go to a secure facility. I know that she had been trying for the past couple of years to say that she had rehabilitated herself and is no longer a threat to the public. But I would disagree. I think that if she's cutting off her ankle monitor and she's not able to abide by a group home rule, then she shouldn't be trusted in society.
And especially shouldn't be trusted if her defense is that Slender Man told her to cut the GPS and leave. So, well, I don't know if that will come up as a defense again, but
yeah, I don't think that will work out well for her if she does do that. But yeah, so she's getting extradited back to Wisconsin. Again, she had taken a bus, I believe it was 200 miles away to Illinois where they found her. It will be interesting to see what happens, but hopefully they won't screw this one up.
Yeah, I mean, I think if she had not been sleeping in that loitering in that area that was so brightly lit like that, I mean, she did just look fairly nondescript with the hoodie, like a homeless teenager like that you would see. And if she had gone to Seattle or someplace, she probably would have blended right in and never would have found her.
Yeah, and I don't know about never. I think that eventually people, they run your name and, things get kind of figured out. Because the way that works is when officers are running your ID and DCI, it's doing a sound index search. So anything that sounds like your name is going to pop up, and it's looking for missing persons, wanted vehicles, and stolen property, essentially. Some other things too. But, it's so common to do that. And I feel like that whether you're going to a homeless shelter, some of those require you to present ID as well. And not that the officer is going to run it, but, there's always that possibility. If he doesn't know who you are, you seem pretty sketchy like she is.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, it's an interesting kind of twist in this case. And so it's one that keeps kind of coming back. It seems like we have 3 different cases that just kind of keep giving lots more, each just these little kind of strange twists to them. So
yeah, all 3 of these will be interesting to keep an eye on. We'll definitely do that. And we'll do another update with these shows or these cases, as well as some of the other ones that are going to be coming up. Next week, we've got an episode with William Noguera that's popping up on Tuesday, where we talked about the Aryan Brotherhood. William spent 44 years on death row in San Quentin's prison. So he's got firsthand experience of what prison gangs are like. We're actually going to be doing a series talking about the main 4 of those. And then Thursday, we are going to be talking about the Yuba County 5. And I've got Tony Wright coming back on the show, who did a book on that case. And it's probably one of the few people that has read that entire case file. So he actually got access from the sheriff's department to go and sit in a room with the entire case file in his notebook pad. And I think he took about 30 pages worth of notes. He was there for a very long time. But that's why his book is extremely detailed. I wish I had a copy of it in front of me so I could promote it. But it is Things Aren't Right by Tony Wright. So if you're interested in that case, make sure that you check that out. And that will be a live show. So people are able to come and ask him some questions. I'm also going to take the comments from the previous show that we did with him and make sure those are asked as well. Brian, do you have anything to add before we wrap this up? Besides, I think I know about the book you want to talk about.
I'll let you hit the image. There we go. Murder on Campus, the Professor, the Cop, and North Carolina's most notorious cold case. Black Friday has come and gone, but we are still in the midst of the holiday shopping season. This is the perfect gift for the true crime fan in your life, whether you are a fan of the hardback or you like the paperback that you like to take notes on. There's lots of things that you'll want to take note of in this book surrounding a case that never really made it out of North Carolina, but is now all around the world as a result of people reading and talking about this book. So do yourself and this case and relatives who are true crime fans a favor by picking up this book from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, or wherever you prefer to buy them from.
There's also a Kindle and an Audible version. So if you don't want to read it or you want to go on a long road trip, get the Audible version. It's great to have to kill some time. Thank you very much for tuning in, and make sure you follow me on Santana True Crime on Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your social media, and also like and subscribe to this channel. Brian, thank you very much, and good night.